people have interests that they mistake for passions, right? Interest, curiosity is often mistaken for passion, right? And I think that's the danger, because definitions matter, okay? Accuracy matters. And that's one of the things that I find very epidemic in today's self-help era, is that there's a lack of clarity in the message, and it's messing up those that are listening to it. You know, my wife had told me about somebody that was very profound in getting people to kind of move and pursue things. And I'm like, okay, but there's a lot of stuff that comes, this one person, I heard a story about one person that was inspired and they left their job. I'm like, oh my gosh, but we know motivation is fleeting. I'm like, if you leave your job, do you have the skill sets to be an entrepreneur? Do you have the discipline to be self-employed, to grow a business? Do you have the endurance after the inspiration is passed? There's an endurance factor. Here's my thing. I tell people, only take the leap that you can afford the injury, right? A lot of times when you leap, at first it's gonna hurt, okay? Like now that I'm older with all these artificial joints, I tell young people, take the leap when you're young, because your bounce back, your recovery is significant. As you get older, it's not that you shouldn't take leaps, but they got to be a little bit more calculated, and they can't be from too high of heights, okay? Because your bounce back isn't there. When I left the police department, that was a huge leap for me. That was a huge leap for me, leaving a 27-year career in law enforcement. And so, and I knew that I couldn't, where I was in life, being older, more mature, I knew that it was time to take a leap, but I couldn't take a leap from too high of a height because I knew my bounce back wasn't there. So mine had to be a little bit more measured and calculated. I took it, but I mitigated the risk, right, of injury and recovery. And so only take the leap if you can afford the injury. And that's what people don't understand. And that really comes down to being honest with yourself. What do you have in play? What could you afford to lose should everything go south, right? Because oftentimes when you take a leap, initially there is a deficit that kicks in, right? Granted, you develop the muscles, but we know from failure, that's where we get growth and improvement and lessons. Okay, so like when I took the leap, I took some lumps. If you're gonna take the leap, can you afford the lumps? Yeah, that's not in the playbook, man. They're not teaching that. And so I told this one person, they're like, yeah, I inspired them. Guess maybe they left their job and they felt really good about it. And I'm like, hold up. I'm like, did you just set that person up for failure, though? I'm like, because if that person doesn't have discipline, if that person doesn't have endurance, what does that person have in place beyond that brief fleeting moment of motivation to actually succeed? See, I think that, like, we're living in the Great Resignation now, and a lot of people during the pandemic, they left their jobs to pursue digital careers. I'm gonna be a YouTuber and I'm gonna be all this, and I don't hate it. Some have succeeded, but I told my wife, in the next coming years, you're going to see a mass migration back to the workforce, right? Because we all know that most businesses fail within the first 3 years of inception. The majority of most business ventures fail, especially small businesses. And so knowing that, I'm like, okay, pandemic started in 2020. Let's give it to 23, 24, and let's see what the marketplace looks like then. Oh, especially us. Yeah, especially us. Absolutely. Because and artists, generally speaking, I'll put this up here so it can be seen. It's a weird place because I know I have my screenplay in play. Artists, especially, because we are so emotionally driven and fueled, our emotions become hazardous to us. And a lot of artists, you know, many of us, I know I'm diagnosed with it, even though I don't claim it in the name of Jesus. I'm diagnosed with major depressive disorder. Now, granted, I'm aware of the clinical assessment, but I don't claim that. I don't live in that. And so, but being aware of it, I put things in place to account for it, right? A level of discipline and awareness, as well as systems and accountability, so I don't have to take these medications. But artists, many of us suffer from depression and anxiety. That's what drove us to the craft, right? That's, you know, many of us were outliers and outcasts or bullied, you know what I mean? And art became our refuge. And not a lot of artists have the benefit of having a spiritual walk, you know, like I do, that helps me. It helps, you know, my faith in the Lord and my practice is huge for mitigating those bouts and overcoming, you know. Yeah, failure is a part of the process, and many of us can't handle that, especially in this current generation. Failure, they're taught it, they're preached it, but many people don't know how to handle and navigate it. Okay, when I was training athletes back in the day before we opened our gym, one of my mantras was I'll take an L, but not the one you think, right? I will take a lesson, but I'll never take a loss, right? So you're going to take this L, you know, in competition, win-loss. I tell people, no, I'll take a lesson, but I'll never take a loss. Even if I fail in that endeavor, it's only a loss if I learn nothing from it. And so I use lessons, I use failures to take a certain type of L, okay? Yeah. I'm like, there's something to be learned from this, you know, but I ain't taking no losses, bruh. I'll take lessons. I'll take lessons in failure, but I ain't gonna take no loss, okay? And that's a mindset. And so whenever, you know, my athletes would have a game or something, you know, especially when they lost, I would have film sessions that I did for the athletes that I trained, because, you know, many of them weren't even getting at the schools that they played for. And we went down and we went to school. This is why. This is what led to this defeat, right? I hated using the word loss. It was always a defeat, right? Or a failure, right? Or coming up short, you know, because after we were done, you were better equipped for the next go round. And now that L looks different. It's a time to learn. Yes. Processing failure is huge. You know, to your point, processing failure is huge. Unfortunately, there's no school on processing failure, right? Because failure looks different. It has different faces, you know, depending on, you know, I'm gonna give him a little eyebrows under here. It looks different depending on the arena, right? Right, and it also, you know, failure is predicated on what the goal was, what the target was. You know, what many people, you know, some people deem as failure. To me, you know, I'm like, that's not a failure, but I don't minimize it because I'm like, okay, well, what was the goal? Then maybe help me contextualize it for me. You know, as long as I know what the goal is. But failure can be a good thing, especially if you're failing at the right things. If you like Denzel said, if I'm gonna fall, I'm gonna fall forward, right? I'm not falling back. I'm gonna fall forward into something better. I'm gonna fall forward into something a little more conducive and beneficial, you know, to my journey. You know, so yeah, that failure, it's you determine what that looks like. You know, I don't let other people define failure for me. you know. So it may not look like you need it to look, but it looks unique to every aspiration. And that's part of that, you know, counseling, coaching thing, you know, that I've learned over the years, you know, to ask better questions,